Friday, December 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern, Alabama will be going to Norman, Oklahoma for the first playoff game in the 2025 college football playoffs. We saw this game a few weeks back in Tuscaloosa, and Oklahoma got the win 23-21 in what was a pretty misleading score. So I want to talk about what happened in that game and how we can, how I think based off that, what will happen in this playoff game in Norman. So the big takeaway from the original regular season matchup in Tuscaloosa was Alabama completely blew Oklahoma out of the water when it came to actual yardage. They almost doubled Oklahoma's yardage, it's 406 to 212. The difference was turnovers primarily. Alabama had three turnovers. One of them was a pick six in the first quarter. It was a disastrous first quarter for Alabama. They just couldn't make up. Second one was another fumble that led to another touchdown. And third fumble, or sorry, second fumble, third turnover late in the game for Alabama that really sealed the loss. Um, Three turnovers led to 17 Oklahoma points, and they only scored 23 on the day. Um, so it was really, really costly. Top of that, Alabama missed a field goal. So that's 20 points down the drain right there. Um, and you only lost by two. So I think if you're an Alabama fan, what you're thinking is, hey, everything went wrong game one. I was in Tuscaloosa. Now we got to go to Norman. We're playing maybe a better Oklahoma team than we saw a few weeks back. We got problems of our own that maybe didn't exist a few weeks back. We got a really bad piece of film from last week against Georgia that Oklahoma can use to their advantage. So we definitely have different problems, different challenges in this week than we did in the regular season match against Oklahoma. But you feel pretty good about yourself. You feel like if everything doesn't go wrong, if just a little bit goes wrong, you're in a pretty good spot here. And I think the bookies originally agreed. Alabama opened up as a 1.5 point favorite on the road against Oklahoma. That line has since shifted. Oklahoma now about a 1.5 point favorite in most books. Um, so me personally, I think I'm looking at what Alabama did last week, and I think I would take Alabama to win, and I think I'd take Alabama to cover the 1.5 in the opening spread. And now that they're underdogs, I'll take them to win straight up against Oklahoma. And the reason for that is I think there's been a bit of an overreaction, I think, to what Alabama did against Georgia. I think Georgia dominated Alabama. I think it was not because Alabama beat themselves, right? You look at that game from Alabama. And Georgia played a great game. Georgia dominated, and obviously a lot of that is because Alabama didn't play their best. But Alabama wasn't being themselves. Alabama had one penalty in that game. They didn't really turn the ball over. I know they had one. They had the punt block. They had an interception, and they had some fourth down conversions that didn't go their way. Um, but that was situational football. That wasn't mistakes, right? That was you had to go for it on fourth because you got yourself in a hole. I don't think it was necessarily you know, boneheaded plays. It was Georgia with the unsportsmanlike penalty that would have costed you the game in a closer match, right? It was Georgia that wasn't able to get any explosivity. That's another thing. I think there's a lot of unfair criticism on the Alabama defense playing without some key players, and how they played against Georgia. And I'm looking at that game and I'm saying Georgia didn't have a 20-yard play all game, right? So I think Alabama, there's a lot to take away from that Georgia game that's positive. And you clean up some of the turnovers from the Georgia game and from the Oklahoma game originally. Um, you continue to play clean in terms of penalties, and you can move the ball pretty well. So I feel pretty good if I'm Alabama here. Um, the big concern, I think, in this game compared to last game is because I think the turnover mistakes, the turnover battle will regress to the mean. I think this will probably be closer to a at least a -1 turnover battle, not a -3, right? I don't think they're going to be losing special teams and losing turnover battle, and losing penalties. I think that'll sort of regress to the mean. I think the X factor that might be different here this week that compared to the last regular season matchup is injuries, right? Jan Miller's out. Josh Cuevas, or maybe not out, but Jan Miller's injured. Josh Cuevas is injured. LT Overton's been injured. And on the other side, last time you played Oklahoma, John Mateer was maybe not super fresh off that injury, but he was certainly pretty fresh off of an injury and a recovery that it seemed like he rushed. So I wonder if John Mateer's gonna be able to piece together, especially with these last couple of weeks off. You'll have 2.5 weeks off between Oklahoma's last game of the season against LSU in this playoff game. I wonder if John Mateer's gonna be a little more healthy, a little more able to extend the game vertically for Oklahoma's offense because last time they really had nothing going for them. Um, so if Jan Miller's out, if Josh Cuevas is out, if LT Overton's out, John Mateer's back, that's a big difference for Oklahoma. What it seems like, and Kalen DeBoer's talked about the injury status the last couple days, is Jan Miller looks like he'll probably play. I have no clue if he'll be limited or not, but it seems like he's the of those three I mentioned, the furthest along in his recovery. So it sounds like he'll play, and it sounds like he'll probably get at least a decent workload. Now, how efficient he'll be with that workload, I don't know. Sounds like LT Overton is probably least likely to play, and both him and Cuevas are probably a little more questionable than Jen Miller. But you have to imagine for this sort of game, if they can play, they will. So the question becomes how effective can they be? Um, because based off what Georgia did to them, they're going to need some output from those players. On the other side, I wouldn't expect Mateer to be too different from in his performance from what we saw in the last couple weeks of the season against Missouri and LSU. So I'd expect this Oklahoma offense to be pretty limited. And you look at what happened in the last regular season matchup, the starting field position for these two teams. Because I mentioned Alabama had 406 yards to Oklahoma's 212. A lot of that was just because they started way further back. So the reason why the score is so close, even though the yardage is so far apart, Alabama started their average drive at the 21-yard line. Oklahoma started their average drive at the 43. On top of that, they had the pick six, right? So Alabama was spotting Oklahoma 22 yards every single drive. Stack that up over 10, 11 drives over the course of the game. That's your 200-yard difference right there, right? So Oklahoma was not able to do a lot, and they had a great field position every single drive. They got points from the defense. Um, they got they netted points, I guess, in special teams, and so I wouldn't be too optimistic if I'm Oklahoma. I'd expect a regression to the mean in turnovers and field position and all of this. Um, and so I think this 1.5 point line that's currently been set for Oklahoma is a little misleading because I think that score in the regular season game was a little misleading. And I think the narrative around Alabama is maybe a little too pessimistic and a little too reactionary. So my prediction, I'm going to take Alabama to win this game, probably pretty low scoring, 'cause especially with how beat up I think Alabama will still be by the time this game rolls around. And, obviously Oklahoma um, will have similar issues. I'm thinking something like 24-13, somewhere in that range, 24-14. Alabama to win by just over a possession. I think it'll be a pretty close game because of how low scoring it is. But I think it'll be a bit of a slugfest. But I'm hoping for a great night in Norman, first playoff game in Norman ever. So let me know what y'all think about this game in the comments, and until next time.